Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube video on how to create a full moon composition. Um, and here is the final result. I was up at Mount Cootha in Brisbane from the lookout, and I took a photo of some of the skyline of the buildings of the Brisbane CBD, and I photographed the moon rising at every 5-minute intervals and composed them into one image. So I've got a base image, and all these other images have come in to create this lunar composition. Now, the base image, first of all, I used a Canon 60D, and I used a 50mm aperture, and I used a 50mm kit lens. It was part of a 28mm to 80mm kit lens, Canon kit lens, so it's a cheap one. If you've got a 50mm fixed aperture, you've got better optics than that one, and you'll end up with a better result. But for this exercise, it worked quite well. So yeah, I took the base image. The camera was set to manual, and for the base image, I didn't use autofocus. I used manual focus, so I had to sort of twist the lens to find a nice sharp image of the Brisbane CBD skyline after the moon went out of the frame. Now, yep, manual focus, it's important to use. My lens, the manual focus for the moon, I have no infinity set. I have to find the sweet spot manually by twisting the lens left or right, and finding the moon at sharp focus that way. It's not my fault, it's just the lens, it's a cheap one, and that's how it works. So you take a base image. This one was taken at a 2-second exposure, f6.3 at ISO 100 with a 50mm aperture. Once again, my camera was set to manual setting. I didn't use bulb because exposing the moon, it's pretty bright. The manual settings is good enough. The bulb setting, and the manual setting goes up to 30 seconds or maximum exposure, so I'm only using fractions of a second. For the moon shots, I use the same lens, obviously. I used ISO 400 at it's the same stop, f6.3, 50mm lens, ISO 400. However, these images of the moon separately, they're all at 5-minute intervals. The exposures ranged from 60 seconds. The exposure times ranged from 1/50th of a second to 1/4000th of a second. Now 1/50th is here, and 1/4000th of a second is up there. So now I'll just open up Photoshop and navigate to where my files are all stored. So I used 2 bases in this one, just different shutter speeds and same ISOs, but I just chose the one that looked the best. And base 1 is what I used. So I open that first. It's in RAW. I shot in RAW. I always shoot in RAW because you've got most data there. If you shoot in JPEG, it compresses some of the data and you lose information. So there's my base image. I then open up my moon images, and they're all stored here. These are all my moon images going from 7330 all the way to the last one at 7350. I'm not going to go through all of them. So what I'll do is I'll bring in a few and I'll just show you how it works, because I'll be saving time and because it's a repetitive process. So here is my first image that I'm going to use. That one I didn't want to use because the moon was too faint. So the next image, I'm going to open that one up. Open. And then what I do is I go to select all, image, copy, go back to my base, image, edit, paste. Now I've pasted that moon over that one, but what I do is I go over here and then I use lighten. And there you have it. It's lightened everything up except the bright moon onto the base. And then I just keep going. File, open. Next one in the sequence is 7332. So there we go. Open, open. Important, you've got to have your moon focused. And remember, it's not an infinity on my lens anyway. You've got to find it yourself manually. And then when you're happy with that, keep it at that. Use a zoom function on your DSLR. Zoom it up as close as you can and fine focus your manual lens that way. That way you'll know, it makes it easier to focus. That's why you know where the sweet spot is, by looking at the features on the moon. So I brought up the second one in the sequence. Mind you, these are taken at every 5-minute intervals after the moon rose. So I go to select all, edit, copy. I go back to my base plane, edit, paste. It's brought in layer 2. Once again, I go back to lighten. Now, if you're not happy with some of the exposures, or it's been overexposed or underexposed, you can make adjustments to each individual layer. Image adjustments, you can adjust the exposure. But I'm not doing it at this time. I'm happy with what I've got. If you're not happy with your exposure time, you know where to make the adjustment. Let's bring in layer 3. Open. The next one in the sequence is 33. Open. Open that. Select all, edit, copy, go back to your base layer, edit, paste. Then go back to lighten. That one looks a little bit overexposed. I'm just zooming in on the image. I may want to bring that exposure down, so I'll just, for this instance, I will. So I've highlighted that layer, and then I go to image, adjustments, exposure. But before I do that, I should zoom in. So image, adjustments, exposure, layer 3 is highlighted. Might want to bring it down 0.25, so minus 0.25. There you go. What I'll do is I'll bring in another image further up in the sequence, because it's just a repetitive process. So I'll just select file, open. I'll select something somewhere here, open. Select all, edit, copy. Go back to your base layer, edit, paste, and go lighten. I'll pick another one further up in the sequence. I don't know what happened there. But, I'll go to 40, 42, open. Here's 42, open that. Select all, edit, copy, back to my base, edit, paste, go back to lighten. There you go. Looks a bit dull, doesn't it? But you may want to adjust the exposure if you want to. Highlight the layer, exposure. You know, might bring it up to 2. Happy with that? Okay. There you go. There's the process. Probably layer 3. Not layer 3. Yeah, layer 3. What I might do is adjust the exposure there. Zoom in. Image adjustments, exposure. Bring it down. Yeah, -1. I'll leave it at that. There you go. Now all you do, you'll end up with, you know, the moon dot 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 all the way to the end until it goes out of the field of view. And then once you're finished with that, but before I'll save it, I'll show you something else which is important. When you set this camera up on a tripod and you have chosen your field and your base, you've chosen your base first. Once you take your base and then take your moon shots, you don't move anything. You don't move the camera, you don't move your tripod, you don't bump it. If you do, your moon shots will end up out of just all over the place and it won't work properly. So just be aware of that. And another important thing is for planning, I've got, I'll just minimize Photoshop now. I've got something I downloaded from the internet, and this is a document created by Fred Espenak. He's an eclipse guru, a very advanced amateur, and he's come up with this table. Focal length, field of view for both full frame cameras and APS-C. My Canon 60D is an APS-C, and he tells you the size of the moon on the frame. I use a 50mm lens. The field of view is 18 degrees in the horizontal and 28 degrees in the vertical. That's important to know, so you can plan your exposure. And also, you can use stellarium in conjunction with this to find out when the moon is at 28 degrees above the horizon. That's when it finishes, roughly. That's but anyway, I found that handy. And let's go back to the end here. So all I do is just go File, Save As, save it as a TIFF. I'm going to call it Demo 1. Save. Just go OK, OK. Then I also save it as a JPEG, so then I can email it to people because the TIFF file is too big. Now, I saved it as a TIFF 16-bit, which is 16-bit means it's got a 16-bit color range. It's the best number to choose. Dynamic range of colors, and the TIFF file is saving most of the information, and you don't lose much data. Doesn't compress much at all, so you don't lose much image when you compress it. I'm going to save it as a JPEG now. To save me typing it again, I just click on that where my Demo 1 TIFF is, and then save as a JPEG. Save, and I just go OK, and there you go. I just close everything down when I'm finished. Don't save, don't save, don't save. But if you did make changes to the base and to your moon images, then I would save. So I'll show you the end result. Okay, where's demo? Demo. On the wrong folder. There it is. No, they're the original ones I did. Here we go. Demo 1. I'll just bring up. There it is. That's the JPEG. You can see it's 1.1 meg, and the Demo 1 TIFF is 252 megabytes. There you go. I hope I've covered everything in there, and I hope you find that useful. Thank you very much.